Welcome back to the BXG Podcast, the podcast where pop culture and nerd culture meet at the nexus of the universe. I am one of your hosts, Brenton Beswick, alongside my co-host, the Santa Barbara variant.
That's right.
Greg Filson. Greg, how are you tonight?
I'm okay. My third eye is open for this pod. I'm ready to go.
Is it brown?
No, it's blue.
Okay.
Just like my other two.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was.
Yeah.
A little lowbrow there for us. So we are tonight here to review the latest Marvel Studios film, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, starring Benedict Cumberbatch as Dr. Stephen Strange, Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda Maximoff, Benedict Wong as Wong, Chiwetel Ejiofor. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going with her first. I'm sorry, Brian.
Sorry. Yeah. I'm going. Yeah. As Baron Carl Mordo, which is funny whenever they say Carl, and he's like, "Your name's Carl." Chiwetel Gomez as America Chavez, Rachel McAdams as Dr. Christine Palmer, with others that we'll get into later. The film did very well. It was the 5th best opening weekend for a Marvel film and the 11th best opening weekend of all time. Greg, spoiler free. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, 75 critical, 87. At least earlier when I looked.
Yeah, that's what I looked last I saw too. For me, it was, it was fun to go back to a Marvel movie
87 that
will continue its arc. We know that Spider-Man is not going to continue in the Marvel, the MCU as we know it. It's going to do kind of its own thing. I don't think Spider-Man even shows up in that beginning credits now. Unless I missed it, but
he never does because he's Sony.
Yeah, but it's like there. I thought there was like one time where he showed up like in Endgame or something. Okay, so I was just wrong. Okay, either way. Okay, so that was like, I guess it was funny that I was paying attention to that and never noticed it before, but this time I did. Okay, so regardless of that doesn't matter anyhow. I like how they referenced Spider-Man though in this movie, just as like, I know it's a spoiler, but whatever. On that,
it's not a huge spoiler.
It's not a huge spoiler, right? So
deal with the plot.
For me, it was just fun. Like, that this, for whatever degree, matters going forward, and so there is some of the elements of it. You're thinking about it, not spoiling anything. Just you have to think a little bit more about what you're watching, and I know Ty, our friend of our Ty, if you're listening for the first time, or you've listened to an episode where we haven't mentioned Ty, had mentioned he saw it with a good crowd, people reacting. The same thing for me. It wasn't a completely packed theater, but I think that's also because where I saw it, there's literally, I think I have it up, there are 13 showtimes every day for it.
Yeah.
And that's just in the one theater. If you go completely across the Santa Barbara area, there's somewhere around, I think I counted, and that was the day I saw it, 21 showtimes in just this pretty, it's not a small area, but it's relatively, compared to like, a major city, small. 21 showtimes is a lot. So I don't think any theater around here would have been packed for it. Compared to Batman, the 3-hour runtime changes. This was only 2 hours and 15 minutes or something.
Yeah.
Something like that.
2:15.
And so I think that impacts things too. Like Batman was packed because there was only 7 showings at this theater compared to 13. All those different things. So there was just more to it. Obviously, this movie made a ton of money. To me, this was one of those movies where, like, I know we had Spider-Man. I don't think Spider-Man counts because Spider-Man is big no matter what. If he's part of the MCU, if he's not part of the MCU, it's Spider-Man.
I mean, I would argue that the Garfield movies didn't do well enough to support more of those.
I will. The thing I'll say is they were just so different. And what's funny is how so many people have come back and said how much they liked him. it was so people went and saw those movies, not in mass, but just in a way that Spider-Man does well enough, I should say. It's one of those things where there's still going to be more Spider-Man movies, no matter what. That's the thing, is like, it may not have been Andrew Garfield, but whatever. And so this was, to me, like a proving point about where we're going with Marvel, because I think Doctor Strange, before this movie, you had this idea that Doctor Strange is a very important character going forward. He's either Tony Stark, he's some character that means a lot more to the franchise now than when he first came into the MCU. And this movie, while it had that importance, it also had its moments of like levity. And even though it was very scary in the sense of a Marvel movie, you know, scary in that sense, not scary in like an actual horror movie scary, but there were good jump outs, things that you don't normally see. And that's because of Sam Raimi. I thought that I see a lot of backlash with Wanda. You know, people didn't like the way that Wanda's character ended up, but I thought the buildup of Wanda was awesome. And to have someone that we generally think of as a hero maybe not necessarily turn out that way, and it you know, we don't know if this is necessarily in. I thought that was really cool. I thought this movie also had a good pace. I never felt bored by this movie. Personally, I never felt, I will say I never felt bored. I never felt like totally revved up, pumped, except for one scene that we'll get into when we actually do spoilers. This movie to me was kind of, it sounds weird, but it put the expectations, I think, literally where they needed to be, where it's like, yes, there can be better movies and there can be worse movies. It's not a straight down the middle, but it was like a good way to jump into whatever we're doing next. When we don't have Captain America and we don't have Iron Man, it wasn't the perfect movie to jump in, but it was good enough to make us think, okay, we know we're in the multiverse. We know this now, for sure. And whether we like it or not, that's just the way it is. And people can argue about it. So I think it was a good stepping stone for what we're doing next. And we don't know what Thor is going to involve or how far that actually carries, but we do know that Doctor Strange is important. And this movie made it seem like Doctor Strange is important. And I like that.
Yeah, I think I agree with some of what you said. I disagree with some of what you said. I do think that right now, Strange is probably... I think that he's leading the franchise in the way that they probably wanted Captain Marvel to, post Iron Man, because I just think that part of it is that people like the character a little bit more for whatever reason. I know a lot of people don't like Brie Larson. I'm totally fine with her. Also, that Benedict Cumberbatch is just kind of a cool guy, so they want him in there. And you can kind of, if you really want to go back and listen to when we covered the MCU up until Black Widow, I believe it was up until No Way Home. No,
yeah,
Far
No
From
Way
Home.
Home.
Far From Home. Far From Home.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, second Spider-Man. So up until that film, and we talked about how Doctor Strange, the original film, was served very well by the two Avengers movies, specifically in Infinity War, and that they kind of made the original Doctor Strange a little bit better. With all that being said, and the importance of Doctor Strange and the multiverse and everything like that, I will be honest that I did not really care for this movie. I was bored a lot of the time.
Okay.
And I felt like some of the things that we saw in the original Doctor Strange that made it different and special, and some of the things that we saw in Spider-Man No Way Home that from the Doctor Strange angle that make his character unique and special were missing from this. And as such, I think it had its strengths. It did have some strengths, but you know, when I was asked my opinion just through text by some friends, when I told them I had seen it, they said, "What did you think?" And I said, this was kind of like watching the Royal Rumble, and somebody shows up that you like didn't expect to show up, that's like maybe like an old timer or a legend or something like that, and they come in and they clean house for like 30 seconds, and it's like really feel good for those 30 seconds. And then Roman Reigns comes in and just throws them over the top rope immediately. That's what this movie felt like to me, and that'll make more sense when we get into the spoilers, but that's what this analogy was for me of this movie, because it just wasn't I was just bored. I was bored by it. I was bored.
Okay.
You know, you said you weren't bored. I was bored by this probably 75% of the time.
And, you know, I think the thing is like I said, I was never bored. I was never like flying off the seat of my pants except for one scene. So like, I can understand if you're saying you may have been bored. Like I also had, I'll be honest, and we didn't really get into like this right beforehand. I had super low expectations, honestly. After seeing the Batman, I was like, and also seeing like, I just really liked Thor after Ragnarok, and just that idea of that movie got me so much more excited than this movie to me was. I really came into it like, I hope I don't dislike it. Like that was basically where I was at. Not that I hope I like it. I hope I just don't dislike it. Like I just want to go out of this.
I'm the opposite. I had very high expectations of this.
Okay.
Because of the Avengers movies, because of Spider-Man, because of everything. And they've hyped this movie so much over the last 3
That's what made me nervous. Sure.
But I had very high expectations going into this, and they were not met. This is what I'll say. Spoiler free before we get into it is, I would say that this was a very middle of the road MCU movie. And I think that the problem continues to become that the weight of the universe that they are building is beginning to collapse in on itself, which is what made Moon Knight so special. I mean, we're not going to do a whole thing about Moon Knight, but what made Moon Knight
go back and listen.
Yeah, go back and listen, or watch on the YouTube channel. That's what made Moon Knight special, is that it didn't concern itself with universe building. It told a story. The story was well told, the end. Whereas with this, it was, okay, we've got to set up X, Y, and Z while also accomplishing these plot points and introducing these cameos and blah, blah, blah. It's just eventually, and I saw an article the other day that said that Kevin Feige and the Marvel studio heads are going to be planning the next 10 years of the MCU at some like summit. And it's like, I don't know that we're going to, like at this rate, since we've come back to the theater, we've had Black Widow, Shang-Chi, The Eternals, Spider-Man, which it's MCU, but it's not, you know what I mean? Because it's Sony, and Doctor Strange. And you had Black Widow that was over. It's almost like the Jay-Z Nas disc in whatever the hell that song is, where it's like Black Widow was overdue, Shang-Chi was a banger, The Eternals and Doctor Strange were both kind of nah, and one of them was No Way Home. Right. It's like No Way Home is nomadic here.
I think what's funny is like you had high expectations, I had low expectations, so our opinions it's almost weird. It's like, I think so we were right in a way. And you know what I mean? Like you're saying you disliked it and you were bored. I say I liked it because I honestly went into this like nervous that I was going to hate it. And that's kind of, and I didn't. And so like, I'm not going to, this isn't going to be the highest score. It won't be a lowest score when we actually get to it.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. And this is what I would say too, is however many of these goddamn movies we're into now, it's so middle of the road. You know what I mean? It slots, what is there, 28 movies? It slots like right in there at like 14.
Sure. And what's funny,
the original is better. I'll just say that.
I have to go back. I don't know.
I think the original is better.
I have to go back. The thing, and are we going to go into spoilers?
Yeah, we'll do spoilers. That. We'll just do spoilers now.
So the thing I'll just say is, I know a lot of people are criticizing the way that Wanda went out. And you can, however she ended up turning, but she has the best scene in the whole movie. And to me, it's not even close. When we find out about the Illuminati and, they're coming out and they're like, we can handle this. And we find out we knew Patrick Stewart was going to be in it, and he comes out to the X-Men.
Yeah, that was dope.
That got me pumped.
Yes.
I will say that got me pumped. The X-Men cartoon, which is coming back.
Yep.
And everybody was pumped about that. And then, you have Reed Richards, played by John Krasinski, who everybody wanted John Krasinski, and that was cool. I mean, like, this was all set up. And then you have Captain Marvel, not Brie Larson.
Right.
Her name's escaping me all of a sudden. I had
Monica,
the actress.
Maria,
Monica, Monica,
Rambeau.
her friend. And then
I think it's
Maria. And you also get Captain Carter.
Mm-hmm. Haley Atwell.
Haley Atwell. And then one of the comic book characters that always comes up is like one of these really powerful comic book characters.
Black Bolt.
And Black Bolt. And then but he's so like boring.
Right.
And it's so funny how he's like in this. It just kind of that actually made me laugh. Because I was like, wow, we went reaching for this one. But
he's a member. He's an original founding member of the Illuminati.
I know. It was just funny to me. It was just funny to me. And also it led to a scene of he went out in such a gruesome way.
Yeah.
So, this is my favorite part of this entire movie. And it's when Wanda just completely dismantles them by she barely had to toss her hair aside. It was, the way she got rid of everyone was just so impactful. I mean, she just makes, his mouth disappear. She makes Captain Carter she's like, I can do this all day. And then literally shield cut through you. Reed Richards, one of the smartest people in the world, done in no time. And right before, Professor X says she's a mutant, done. She comes back and snaps his neck. And, and then, we're dealing with Ms. Marvel Captain Marvel, who's one of the strongest beings in the universe. And she's like, nope. And why this is funny to me and why I really like that scene is, did you have the Marvel board game as a kid, Brenton, at all?
Maybe, I don't know.
It was this, I played, if my mom or when my mom listens to this, I played this game obsessively. This is like it had every Marvel character you could imagine, characters you wouldn't think about. And when their characters were rated 1 through 5, and, 1 being the weakest, 2 and 5 being the most powerful. And so Thanos is a 5, your normal people that you think of are 5. And then there's Scarlet Witch, who's also rated a 5. And I think the only other, I don't think there's another female character in that game that's rated a 5 other than Scarlet Witch. And I was always like, why is Scarlet, you're just like, you look at her, there's nothing, insane about it. And then you actually read her background and how she basically can be. And when she's evil, when she's not this, it was just so impactful. And it brought me back to when I actually read some Scarlet Witch comic books where she's neither good nor evil. She just wants to be in control and of her destiny. And that was cool. So that for me was my favorite scene. And the biggest spoiler to me was bringing back this Illuminati, bringing back people we've heard about being in these movies, changing things around, getting into the multiverse.
So I think that's the scene in specific that I mean about, it's the 2000 Royal Rumble and Macho Man shows up. You know what I mean? It's the whole thing about Krasinski being Reed Richards. I mean, do we know if that's the case moving forward for the Fantastic Four thing? I know everybody's wanted him to be Reed Richards, and that's been a fan casting for years, but I don't know if this is just a fun nod to the fans or if this, because we know Fantastic Four is coming, right?
Right.
So we've seen a logo and all that, but so that's kind of interesting. Black Bolt, like you said, is kind of weird and boring. I'll say this, and you mentioned the crowd. You could tell who was had read comics and who hadn't.
Oh, sure.
Because I will say that this is the first movie that I had been to where people cheered or whatever.
Yeah.
In a while. They didn't do that for Batman or Spider-Man for me. So the Illuminati New Avengers #7, July 2005, first appearance of this team. Founding members: Namor, the King of the Atlantis, Tony Stark, Reed Richards, Black Bolt, King of the Inhumans, Dr. Stephen Strange, and Professor Charles Xavier. So they kind of, they swap some people out, put them back in. This was obviously a different universe than the standard one, so we could in some capacity see the Illuminati show up again down the line. But that was an awesome fight scene.
Yeah.
And it was pretty grisly how most of them went out. And I will say, from an overall violence standpoint and like kind of the way this movie dealt with its lethal blows was kind of borderline. I mean, I don't think that this is an R-rated movie in the same way that like the Batman potentially could have been an R-rated movie, but this was probably the most grisly Marvel movie to this point, I would say. Sure. And they did kind of market this as a horror, like it's got horror elements. And I certainly think that the chase scene through the tunnel certainly harken back to some of those things, especially like I'm sure Carrie was a influence for, so it had those elements. Let's kind of take some of these characters the way that we typically do. What did you think of the performance from Benedict Cumberbatch as not only Doctor Strange, Stephen Strange as we know him, but several variants of him?
I mean, I thought it was just, and you're talking about like right down the middle. I thought this was a right down the middle kind of performance. It wasn't over the top. Sure. I think the thing that kind of hurts Doctor Strange, and I mean this not just this movie, I mean in general, is that, and I read Doctor Strange as a kid, and it's fine. Those comic books are fine. Is he needs like a good back and forth. Mm-hmm. And this was prevalent in the comic books as a kid. If there was a good back and forth, that was good, because he's always been kind of like Tony Stark light, where it's you need that good, repartee. You need that, that thing. And like that works in Spider-Man really well. And it works with, it even works with the first one in some degree.
With Wong.
But there wasn't with Wong. And the thing was you didn't get enough Wong and Doctor Strange together in this movie.
Agreed.
Which to me is a negative, because everyone loves Wong.
Right.
And when you absolutely know that, you figure out a way to make it work. I understand separating them for different purposes, but when they're together, it should always just be back banter. It should be just, and I just thought the character, America was not the correct character for this. And it had nothing to do with the actress, had nothing to do with that. It was just, she couldn't hold up, because we didn't know a background by her other than she was like jumping through multiverses. This isn't Peter Parker, who's a genius. And, this isn't Tony Stark, who's a genius.
Right.
It's just someone that has this power that nobody else has. And so there wasn't, to me, enough of that to be consistent in what he needs. And it also has nothing to do with Benedict Cumberbatch. When he's doing his thing, and it's great. But what helps Doctor Strange is that he's an asshole.
Yeah.
Like there is that element about it.
Bit of a prick.
And the only way but the thing is, you can't be a prick by yourself. I can say,
well, you need somebody to be a prick too.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And he felt too bad about this girl, instead of just like Peter Parker, he didn't really feel bad about it. He's like, I don't care, like whatever. Yeah. He has like some moments of it, but it's more that like I can't sit here and talk to myself and say ridiculous things. I might think it's funny, but nobody else does, so it doesn't matter. And if you're just talking in space, it's the same thing as, if a tree falls in the wood, does anybody hear it? And it's like, if you're a prick and nobody's around, then it's not funny.
Right.
And to me, that was the biggest flaw to me in this movie, is I just wanted more of him having a counterpart to actually banter with. because it's great banter. To me, it's the only person I enjoy hearing banter more was Tony Stark, where it's just that back and forth, and it makes you laugh. I mean, going back and watching old Marvel movies, all the Tony Stark stuff always makes me laugh. You know, even if it's just that who put coffee grounds in the in the food disposal again. Like I love
bed and breakfast for a biker gang.
Yeah, like that's so perfect. But he needs people around him, and they always did that with Tony Stark, no matter who it was. And that's where this movie was missing. To me, the biggest thing, I think that's where I knock it down, is I just needed that. I don't need this movie to the grand scheme of things. Like, these movies are never going to be The Godfather. You know, they just aren't. And I don't need that, but I need when you have a strength and you found it with Doctor Strange, play off of that. Don't make him compassionate. I don't care about that. I don't care about his love life. I care about him being a prick and moving shit around.
Right. I will say, Tony always had, if he was by himself, he always still had Jarvis or Friday.
That's right. He always had something. Yeah.
So I will say the Earth 616 or whatever.
Yeah, 616.
You know, that's and for those not in the know, that is the canonical universe of the base continuity of Marvel is Earth 616.
The one we're living in right now is Earth 616.
Right. Well, I just mean from like Golden to Silver Age and all that shit.
Oh,
like,
sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You know, the Ultimates is where you get into like Earth 838 and all that nonsense. I thought he was fine. Like you said, the different iterations of him, I really felt like with the trailers, they really led you to believe that he was going to be going up against like all the What If cartoon Stranges, and that really wasn't the case. Spoilers. I mean, we are in the spoiler section. So
we're in the spoilers, yeah.
Zombie Strange was awful to me. Like that whole thing. It reminded me of Billy Butcher from Hocus Pocus. Like that's like the makeup was terrible.
It was weird.
It didn't work for me. But other than that, I mean, like you said, it was pretty much a right down the middle performance. Let's get into Elizabeth Olsen, who, before you get started, has said she envisions Wanda still having a place in the MCU, and that, you know, could be the X-Men, could be some other things. She did say that she can't get any further into it without spoiling things. So we will, see the Scarlet Witch again. Maybe not the Scarlet Witch, but certainly Wanda Maximoff.
I mean, this to me was awesome because we finally had a villain that I think had like a purpose that we could understand in a sense of like, just, you know, Thanos is trying to kill off half the universe.
It's efficient.
And yeah, it is efficient. Yeah. Is it right? Hers was just like, she just wanted to be around her kids that she created in this like other world. And like, you know, as weird as it sounds, just like you kind of just want to have that family element. And then and the funny thing was like, you know, people always say like, I'll protect my kids at all costs. And that was her thing. And I, you know, the way she went out, like people were just like, oh my gosh, we don't even know she's gone. There was no body. We didn't see anything. This wasn't seeing, you know, Scarlett Johansson dead. You know, this isn't Captain America turning old. This isn't Tony Stark dead. We saw something collapse on her, and she's one of the strongest characters in the Marvel universe. I find it hard to believe that this is, you know, the way she goes out.
Right.
But when she was just cutting through everyone, man, that was awesome. Like, I like this character. Like I said before, I really like this character. I grew up with this character being someone I just enjoyed anyhow. And then we barely get little touches of this character in the movies because she isn't, the only way for her to reach her full power is to be evil. And in a way, you know, conjure up the dark magic. And so she can only do so much. She could have killed Thanos no problem in the dark magic, but because she wasn't utilizing that, that's why she couldn't do it. And, you know, to see her just at the full power and to see like a character that you like, and you're almost kind of rooting for in a weird way, even though it's like, oh, she's going to kill all these people. But I kind of get it because you just like Wanda because of WandaVision so much. That show is so good. It made you like her so much. And Elizabeth Olsen, I think, just plays this character so well that I thought this was the best performance in the movie, bar none, and just killed it for me. I absolutely love Wanda through and through in this, and I think she'll be back, of course, because I just don't think you take her out in a way like this. Number one, and also it's just she's so badass.
I liked that they went with a true like heel turn.
Yeah,
and I'm using a lot of wrestling references for whatever reason.
Yeah.
In this episode, but I like.
There's only 7 storylines in anything, Brenton. So wrestling comes from Shakespeare, just as like Marvel.
I'm just gonna skip that. I like that it was like a true heel turn, because we've seen like with Civil War, both sides were justified, and it was like, okay, but you have to pick a side. But that's not neither of them were bad. You know what I mean? I like that this was. She went bad, like she broke bad. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And she had her reasons, and we can identify with those reasons or whatever, but not to the point of murdering people to get what she wants. That's bad guy stuff. And so, you know, this is like a legit heel turn. I thought the performance was fine. I mean, I liked her suit. She's pretty hot in it. I mean,
Elizabeth Olsen,
I'm not
hot
gonna,
anyhow. Yeah,
I'm not going to deny
she looks great.
But yeah, you know. But here's the other thing. She's hot when she's dressed like a mom too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's
just one of those characters, but the suit doesn't hurt.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you know, like I had said, the chase scene through the tunnels was so like some of the horror stuff, the quote unquote horror stuff, and it all had to do with her. Some of it was so like over the top.
Well, I mean,
and I think maybe they were going for that, sure, but
it's Sam Raimi. He is over the top and campy. Like there is that part where this is supposed to be campy to some degree.
To some degree, but some of it was just like eye rolling to me.
Sure.
Okay. America Chavez, played by Cholotol Gomez. I had it right at the beginning, but
you did.
Yeah, we had practiced it then.
New York.
Yeah. Just a little bit of background on America Chavez. First appearance, Vengeance #1, September 2011. Affiliate with Young Avengers, A-Force, West Coast Avengers. Abilities: superhuman strength, speed, longevity, durability, flight, invulnerability, star portal creation, star blast, interdimensional travel, and time travel. So that's all the things that she has up her sleeve.
Yes.
What did you think about this necessary evil?
Did not enjoy this character. It was forced. It was not needed. I know that we're probably Young Avengers, to which I am like a big thumbs down on. The Young Avengers are not one of my favorite things. I understand the direction of doing that, but it's not one of my favorite things. It's just, and like I said, it has nothing to do with her acting ability. It has nothing to do with, it's just, I don't care. Like, it was just literally like, I don't care that like you possess this power, and giving it to Wanda is bad. And I understand the ramifications of Wanda getting this power, but there was nothing interesting enough about the character to me. There was literally no background. It's like, you can do this. Cool. And Marvel, for the most part, is pretty good at giving us a background without just throwing someone in. And this was literally it happens. I mean, every movie has something, whether it's Marvel, whatever, where there's one character who has no background, they're thrown into the mix, and you're like, I'm supposed to care. And I literally was just like, they could kill her. I wouldn't even think twice. Like, something bad could happen to her, and I'd be like, cool. And and I love a coming of age tale. One of my favorite things is a coming of age tale. And this was like, they threw this coming of age where she had to realize her power. And that just honestly did not work for me at all.
She was necessary because she's an intra-dimensional traveler. That's why she was necessary. So, what happened? He's gone.
So
we had just to clarify what that gap was. We had a call.
We had a call and I hit the wrong button.
Hit the wrong button.
So I'm sorry about that, because whatever.
Yeah.
So sorry about that, everyone.
Was it somebody who wants to be on the pod?
My mom does want to be on the pod. It was my mom.
Oh, okay.
So she does want to be on the pod. So there you go. Yeah, so it was just a character to me that I didn't care about. I thought it felt forced. And I don't think Marvel forces too many things in our world. This one felt too much for me. And like I had said with Doctor Strange, there was just no like I didn't care. And she had no banter. There was nothing interesting about this character to me. And there was a lot of times, and maybe this is where not necessarily I was bored, but I was just like, I just want to hear Doctor Strange banter with someone.
Sure.
And not this girl. So I know we're heading to Young Avengers. I just hope it's a TV show and we can move on to real Avengers.
So Young Avengers, let me see here. First issue was Young Avengers #1, April 2005. Founding members, or at least original members, Iron Lad, Hulkling, Patriot, Wiccan, who is one of Scarlet Witch's children, Kate Bishop, who obviously we've seen, Cassie Lang, who is the daughter of Ant-Man, Scott Lang, her character's name is Stature. There's a different Vision, Speed, who's another one of the children of Scarlet Witch, America Chavez, Marvel Boy Prodigy, Kid Loki, and then there's some recurring characters. I do think this is going to be a thing, and I do think it's going to be in a movie, because Iron Lad is eventually Nathaniel Richards, and he eventually becomes Kang the Conqueror, and that's like a whole time traveling thing. We know we're getting into that with Ant-Man, and we've seen Kang as, you know, Jonathan Majors and Loki. So I do think that we are headed in that direction, and I think that because they're so set on doing time travel in the multiverse whole situation, that there is no doubt that Young Avengers is the way that they're going. And some of these characters we like, you know, we liked Kate Bishop.
Yeah.
I think obviously they're going to fold things in a little bit differently. Some of those characters are don't necessarily lend themselves to the current MCU, but I mean, we're getting She-Hulk. They might pigeonhole her in there, and then Miss Marvel, I think, will obviously be a part of that lineup as well. But the character itself, it was just and this is the same thing that I've said. It's the weight of the success and the weight of the universe starting to crumble in upon itself. Is they were not the A team when this started, right? The Avengers were not the A team, but everybody knew who Iron Man was. Everybody knew who Captain America was. Everybody knew who Thor was. And the longer we go, the more and more obscure those characters are going to be getting. And I think that was probably typified by the post-credit scene, in which we got Charlize Theron making her MCU debut as the Clea, who is another multiversal, you know, interdimensional, blah blah blah.
Ends up marrying Doctor Strange for all those interested. Sure. Yeah,
I'll take your word for it.
For all those people that think I don't read comic books,
there you go. He either read them, or he took the time to look at a Wikipedia page.
I did. I read that Doctor Strange. It's weird. Doctor Strange is so weird, everyone.
Clea, originally created by Steve Ditko and Stan Lee, debuted in 1964's Strange Tales episode, issue 126. So this is a character that's been around for a long time, but I've never heard of her. So it's, you know, I mean, I didn't read as much as I stuck to my main series that I read, but
what I'll say is I forgot who she was.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it was one of those characters. I haven't read Doctor Strange in 20 years, at least. And I saw her and I was like, I know this character, but I don't know this character. The name completely slipped my mind. Because I think she originally shows up in a 75 issue or something. So no,
I just said 64.
or 64. I'm sorry. I think she married. I'm sorry. I think she marries Doctor Strange in 75. That's what I'm saying. I think it's like
Strange
that.
Tales.
Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah. Do you know who I think she is? Mephisto.
Ooh.
That's who she
just like everyone else.
Yeah. Do you know who you are?
I am a variant of some sort.
Mephisto.
I'm Mephisto too. So it was just, go ahead, Brent. Sorry.
Well, I just, whatever. I mean, looking at some of these other characters, the second end credit scene was just a funny thing with Bruce Campbell. Who does a cameo in every Raimi movie. Yeah, I guess I had too high of expectations for this because I was bored a lot. And this is what I will say. This is what I really felt like was missing was, I think with Doctor Strange, because the whole mirror dimension thing, and we saw some of it in Spider-Man, and we saw a lot of it in the original, is I really like the sort of kaleidoscope Inception-like special effects that come with Doctor Strange. And those really weren't present with this because so much of it focused on like the multiverse jumping, and so much of it focused on like the horror aspects that they were trying to inject into this, that it kind of lost what made Doctor Strange sort of special in the original, that set it apart from a lot of the other things, was those trippy, like the hands when she sends him to the astral realm, the Ancient One or whatever in the original, and like where his hands keep growing little hands, like we missed stuff. Like I missed stuff like that. I felt like the original Doctor Strange, and then I would say the next one being Spider-Man, because he played such a pivotal role. We got so much of those things, and like some of those things, like the train scene in Spider-Man was one of my favorite parts of that movie.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But I do think that, and this is, Marvel is so formulated, it's like paint by numbers at this point. And I think that is what had a negative impact on this film for me. And so my final rating for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness would be a 6.5 out of 10.
And this is where you had high expectations, dropped it. I had low expectation and raised it. My score is a 7.
Yeah.
So we're not that far off. It's just like that kind of thing. It's, to me, it's a fastball. It does what it needs to do. I'm still not concerned about Thor. I'm not concerned about Thor.
No, I'm not concerned. Not in the slightest.
Yeah, I think Thor's good. I said, after Spider-Man, I said Thor is still the movie of this year that's going to be just a knockout. Right. And if it has nothing
for
to
Marvel,
do with,
you mean
for Marvel, yeah. Just to be clear, because I went Spider-Man, will it be good as the Batman? No, because the Batman should win the Academy Award for Best Picture. I don't care what else comes out the rest of the year. It was an awesome movie, and I said that, but it does not change my thoughts on Thor. I do think that this movie, criticism, it doesn't have that much criticism. It's actually, like we 75 and 87 on the critical and the Rotten Tomatoes. I do think there will probably be a little slight backlash to it, and where they'll change from this. I don't think Sam Raimi will do another one, and I have nothing against him. I just don't think. I think you do this kind of one thing and you're out, and somebody else will take over for the Doctor Strange 3 movie, which there will be one. But I am interested about where we're going, and that's it. I don't even know if I want to make a prediction, because we saw Thor out there, and that's, to me, the biggest character still left.
Yeah, him and Hulk, I guess.
Yeah, but Hulk's never interesting. And
he's interesting when he's a side piece. That's it.
Right, when he's a side piece, but not when he's the main thing. Yeah. Thor can be interesting as a side piece, as a main thing. I mean, there's just something about that. And we'll see what happens with Batman. I think it's going to be great. I am there with extremely high expectations for that one. So yeah, 7 for me, 6.5 for you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing, too. I walked out of the theater, I told Janie, it doesn't matter, like, what I think of this. I will still go and see Marvel the first weekend every time, probably until I'm dead. So
I will do that as long as we're doing this podcast. But I'll be honest with you, this was a movie that if we weren't doing the podcast, probably would have skipped it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Even though you had high expectations.
Well, I think part of the expectations was because we talk about this stuff every week. Okay. If it's not something that I'm cognizant of all the time, you know what I mean? I didn't see Ragnarok in theaters. And that was
I didn't see Ragnarok in theaters either, though.
I will say that I've seen since movies came back, and we've been doing the pod. So since whenever Black Widow came out, June, July last year, I think.
Yeah.
I've seen more movies in that span of time in the theater than I probably have in the last 7 years combined. Because we just kind of quit going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It became like you get a little bit older, you don't do that as much. Although I will say I saw him, what movie was it? It was a movie that I saw by myself. So maybe it wasn't Ghostbusters. Anyway, it was one of the movies that we did a review of, but I ended up going by myself. Maybe The Eternals. But my junior high basketball coach and his wife, who are, God, at this point, they're probably in their 80s. They go every Sunday to see a movie without fail.
Yeah.
Just whatever we haven't seen this week is what we're going to see. And I mean, good on them, but I'm happy to be back in movie theaters watching movies in the theater.
100%. And I'll say the only reason really with Ragnarok, I didn't see it. The second Thor movie sucked, Dark World. And so we didn't know we were getting, we didn't know we were getting into it. And also, this is, I was with Janie for a while, and she had not been caught up on the movies.
Sure.
And I didn't want to see it by myself at that time.
Yeah.
And, for a reason, I've seen movies by myself, but I just didn't want to. And I didn't want to bring her into this. I also was so scared it would suck. That I was I didn't want to bring her into something I love so much that it would suck and be like, why do you like this? And it ends up being a hit, things like that. But that aside, I'm not worried about Thor, Love and Thunder at all.
Right. So final score, 6.75 out of 10. Middle of the road ranking.
Yeah.
We should at some point, maybe after Thor, because then the next movie won't be until November or December, Black Panther.
Right.
We should do an episode, not where we recap all the movies again. I don't have the salt to do that again anytime soon. But
unless you just want me to talk about the Winter Soldier for an hour, that's about the only way I can do it.
Maybe we could just do an updated ranking.
Yeah.
Updated rankings of the movies the whole way through. I'd have to go back and listen to what my rankings are. But
yeah, me too. I know I have the Winter Soldier very high because I love that movie. But
yeah, sure. It's a good movie, no doubt. BXG Podcast publishes every Friday at 9 a.m. and flexible on the other days.
Yeah.
As it is. On Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon, podcast services around the globe. YouTube for videos at our YouTube channel for interviews, reviews, trailer reactions, etc. BXG Podcast. Facebook.com for the social medias at Facebook.com/BXG Podcast. Instagram at BXG Podcast. At Twitter at GT Phils. It's late. At GT Phils at Y2B. Twitter at BXG Podcast, at GT Filson, at Y2B. And I think that's about it. We got some really, really good TV series reviews coming up.
We are going hard on that. Yeah. Get ready, everybody.
And they're good. They're not bad.
Good. We like these.
They're good shows. Yeah. We had a run there where things weren't so great. And here comes
we're back in it though. Yeah, we're back in it.
Yeah. It's maybe not Murderer's Row, but it's at least the 95 Indians.
Sure, you could say that. I think that's a 95 Indians lineup is solid.
Yeah,
not winning the World Series, but cutting through the American League pretty easily.
Fuck yourself. Take care, friends.
Thanks for listening.